Welcome, everyone. It is July 28th and it's 1:04 p.m. Let's go ahead and get this meeting started here today. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It doesn't look like we have a quorum, but Mr. Vogel, can you still do the roll just to confirm?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Ms. Basham? Ms. Basham? Ms. Evans?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Geffen? Mr. Geffen? Mr. Kammer?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Robertus?
Hello.
Hey, thank you. Mr. Sandoval? Mr. Sandoval. All right, Mr. Chair, we have 3 of the 6 members present. We're one shy of quorum, but I'll let you know if somebody else comes in.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, just want to check in first of all, before we go any further and see if anyone has any particular things they want to have added to the agenda today, anything you want to cover on the agenda, particularly just so we make sure that we get to it. Okay. I'm not hearing any, so we're going to move forward. I'll give some updates. We will not approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting only because we do not have a quorum, so we will hold tight, and if we do happen to have a quorum at any point, we will go ahead and approve those. So just one brief update. We at our last meeting discussed how we wanted to display some of the data based on requests from other committees, and we weren't having quite what we needed to do so. So we did draft and submit a data request. We know that it's been received, but we have not gotten it back yet. That will just allow us to do some of the other breakdowns that we were hoping to, that we were talking about last time. We need the data broken down a little bit different way to allow us to do what we need to do. So we'll keep you posted. I'm going to hope that maybe we'll have it before our next meeting, because I think that will be a fun work topic, and I think something that we're certainly all very interested in. Second thing I want to do, at the end of our last meeting, we were talking about some of the small narrative updates we got from DHS, and I was frantically trying to pull the email up as I was getting ready here, and I wasn't having any luck. So I am going to go ahead. Oh.
Mr. Chair, I have the data ready to display if you'd like.
Well, hey, that is a win-win. I should have known. Mr. Vogel, will you share that, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So just, I guess, by way of introducing the context here, this is what I have showed last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago. These essentially answers to miscellaneous questions relating to preponderance of evidence that we received. And just like the third question is how many subjects were disqualified based on a POE, who were disqualified based on a POE determination were successful at having that disqualification reversed by an administrative law judge. The answer is a negligible number. Likewise, we didn't really get much new data for the second question, how many disqualifications for domestic assault based on a POE were first-time offenses. As far as I understand, the department doesn't really have that fine-grained detail in its database. But question 1, the answer was the question was interested in seeing a racially disaggregated breakdown of subjects who received a POE review and were not disqualified. And we didn't receive that racially disaggregated breakdown. As far as I understand, that's again a limitation of the department's database. But what we did do is get a general overview of POE determinations and POE not found determinations, which essentially paints a picture of POE cases that were reviewed in 2018 and 2019 in general. And Mr. Chair, I believe what you're sort of interested in, also based on our discussion after that meeting,
and actually, could you go back to the narrative just there for?
Oh yeah, apologies.
Yeah. So they do a good job, stating here that this isn't going to add up to exactly what we saw in Table 3, because we have the number of determinations based on POE. in the table. And as always, we got to think about, an individual can have more than one study done. There's all sorts of variables that can impact this. So when you take a look at the number of, POEs, you'd expect that to be somewhat similar to what we see in the table, but we know that there's going to be some sort of difference here. So I'd want you just to kind of put in your mind, how close or dissimilar you think these numbers will be to the table, because Will and I hopped on the phone after the last meeting just to look at this. I'm going, that was a little different than I thought. So Will, Mr. Vogel, if you can go ahead and jump there for us. My words are not coming out.
I sort of jumped ahead of you, Mr. Chair, but yeah. Good. So this is the third day a DHS data set, which is the one that breaks down evidentiary standards and underlying crimes and conduct. So yeah, the Chair Kammer and I found these numbers to be a little different, or a lot different. So we see 498 POE determinations in 2018, and excuse me, and 196. Oh, excuse me, that's just males, and 821 in 2019. And compare that to these numbers here, and we do see quite a discrepancy.
So I think I just found that interesting because, when we have an individual, where there's a POE being made, my understanding here is that it's because they might have multiple applications, if that's one way of framing it or whatnot. So this is just the number of reviews, but it can impact, based on what we're seeing a little bit higher here in the narrative, it can have multiple impacts on, there can be multiple background study determinations for the same study subject. So, that one determination appears to be able to impact multiple cases. So that's why we're seeing, I think, such a big discrepancy in the numbers. But I wanted to dig a little bit deeper in that, and Mr. Vogel humored me and went for the ride to take a look at the numbers. But let's just sit with that for a minute and see what questions, what comments do you have, any thoughts, or maybe we're not describing it well, but any thoughts, considerations regarding this narrative from DHS and what we're seeing in the data set?
And Mr. Chair, without wishing to interrupt, Ms. Basham has also joined us, so we do now have quorum.
Wonderful. Welcome. So
thank you. I'm not going to be talking though, because there's work being done in our house.
All good. Thank you for letting us know. Ms. Basham, I don't know when you jumped in, but we were just reflecting back on this last piece of data we took a look at 2 weeks ago, where DHS had shown us when there were POE reviews done, how many POEs were found or not found. And it had indicated, these will be a little bit different than what you see in the data sets. And so we just compared it to see what we saw for total in the data sets, and there was a fairly big difference. And the reason for seeing the difference is, this is number of reviews done, and a review can impact an individual or a number of different studies. So that's ultimately what we were getting at there. I think it'll be important to report this to the committee next time, or the task force, I should say, next time we meet. I don't know that all of the different committees have seen this, so I think it'll just be good to bring it to the full task force. And I will try to have my words better put together by that point in time.
You're doing great, Roy. You're doing great.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you. Okay, so again, just any other questions about this before we move on? Okay. What I would like to do then, since we have a quorum, we had minutes from our July 14th meeting that need to be reviewed and hopefully approved. So let me just ask, are there any objections to approving the minutes from our July 14th meeting? Hearing none, we will deem those minutes approved. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I want to check in also, and Ms. Evans, or any of you that participate on any other committees, anything you're hearing from other subcommittees about what type of data would be helpful or useful. We have not met as chairs in a while, so I just want to see if there's anything out there that would be helpful for us to be taking a look at, that we could put together for other committees. Any thoughts, any observations?
Well, we should get a chairs meeting on the books.
I agree we should. So
Yep. So what we're doing right now in disqualifications is talking about drug crimes and looking at super lost.
You're good.
Yep, we so the judge wasn't there this last time, which changed the conversation a little bit. Well, remind me what.
So there was a lot of discussion, especially last time, relating to look back periods and
Yep.
essentially like the big overarching scheme that the group might want to use and then assign crimes into it.
Yep. So we talked about like people's ideas about like if we're going to get rid of the 15, 10, and 7, like what are the other like what is the other framework that we could use and kind of like go from there? Like what are other people thinking? And so so we kind of talked about that, and so I don't know that there's a ton of like the data that we're looking at that we have some other data that we're looking at, but it's like other states' data, not like our DHS data. And so and then in remedies, what are we doing in there? I feel like it's been
yeah, the remedies group has changed its meeting schedule around a little bit to accommodate members' schedules. So last time they discussed the POE standard, and I think had pretty well reached a consensus that they are going to recommend eliminating that standard.
Mhm.
And next meeting, I believe the plan is to address more process concerns. So permanent bars, administrative accountability, that kind of thing.
And so what we went over the last time was like, what is maltreatment? And when do they use it? And then we waited to hear back from DHS about like, is there differences between child maltreatment and adult maltreatment? And we found out that there really isn't. It's the same, like they treat those two instances very similarly. And so then the question next would be, what is our work plan in there after POE?
As far as I understand, Ms. Evans, like I said, the process bucket.
Oh,
and
okay. Yep.
I don't know if Chair Dawson's contemplating looking at bars or like more the nitty gritty of how determinations are carried out and made accountable, but something.
So not process for POE, the process for. So what we're talking about is the process for filing for like a set aside and.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I wonder if looking at some of that, the set aside data and getting that like in a clear visual for the board about like how many people don't ask for set asides, and looking at some of the stuff around that data, like they've given that to us. But is there another way to like present that data, or is there additional information that you have, Ms. Basham, that we could add? And so that could be something that we could look at some data around, and then maybe even like look at other states' data. I don't know. But that's the next thing we're going to be looking at in there. And John is here, so he could add to that as well.
I'll mute myself if we start drilling again. Okay, they say they won't be. I wouldn't add a lot, Gina, to what you said, or what I said at the previous meeting. The vulnerable adults, maltreatment of vulnerable adults statute is statutorily a different, 626.557 as distinct from maltreatment of minors. When we were looking at administrative appeals, we would look, in addition to factors like recency, severity, et cetera, is the relation of the actual or alleged crime to the persons being served. So, as probably seems obvious, but just as an example, if a child care provider is serving infants and preschool age children, but they have a current or prior conviction for violation of a Maltreatment of Minors Act, for example, and again, I was one decision maker, but if they had a past conviction or admission of maltreatment of minors, specifically the portion of the Maltreatment of Adults Act that relates to financial exploitation, I would be inclined as a decision maker to say there's not a rational relationship between financial exploitation and taking care of toddlers. However, if they had been convicted of physical abuse or sexual abuse of a vulnerable adult, generally myself and other administrative decision makers those are both vulnerable groups of people. There's a rational relationship between the two. I don't know if that helps. Hopefully it does. I'm going to drink more coffee now.
And good luck with the drilling and the work. Thank you, Ms. Basham. Mr. Geffen, one of the questions we had asked is just, other committees, some of the work that's going on, to see if there's something that we could do of particular utility, usefulness that could benefit other committees. So any input from you of anything that's on your radar from other committee work that could be useful for us to take a look at?
Obviously my committee work is limited just to the disqualification group, and Gina, as I came in, I know you're talking, and my apologies everyone for being late. I got held in another meeting. We had talked a little bit about it, Gina, but I don't remember, to be honest with you, what we ended up thinking about. So we had talked about other states, but I don't know if that's data analysis subcommittee work. It's more, I think, just our work. Got it.
And the one thing we could maybe help with at some point is if there's any assistance needed with data display or anything like that, we can certainly try to assist with that. So
that's exactly what it was. Now I remember. Yeah, that once we kind of got it together, maybe some help making it look the way you do your magic.
Okay, so we'll work magic when the time comes. So that sounds good. Ms. Evans, I want to go back to what you had mentioned in terms of maybe looking at how we've displayed those who request set-asides and such, and maybe I would look to Mr. Vogel to see if you have anything handy to pull up anything we've put together in the past. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but maybe we could just take a look and then go directly to the data source too, and see if there's something else we can do to display it in the most optimal way.
Definitely, Mr. Chair. Off the top of my head, I don't believe we've visually displayed this data, but
okay,
we do have data.
Well, then we've got an opportunity here.
Yep. Which does break down who requested versus didn't request reconsideration. And let's see, let me pull that up as a spreadsheet, actually.
Thank you.
And the cool thing is that we have that broken down, so we'll be able to show some data around that as the committee is going into looking at process, right?
Yep.
The other thing that we haven't asked a ton of questions about around that is time frames. We have a lot of anecdotal time frames, from providers and stuff, but we don't have any time frames from them. about, what is the average time it's taking, when somebody puts in a set aside request, when is it, how long is it taking to get back? And we know from providers, from schools that, they just had to ask for another 6 months to get caught up from COVID, and, give them grace. It's been a nightmare for everyone. But that's tough, right?
Yep.
So,
And Mr. Chair, Ms. Evans, the data subcommittee has actually submitted requests about timeframes, and as far as I'm aware, we haven't heard anything back on that. I can actually reach out to the department and ask where they are on that.
and that's one of the things we talked about from the beginning, on a maltreatment, you have 15 days to get your paperwork back in, which is substantial. And on a regular set aside, you have 30 days. And I did it's a little different now, but back then I had to drive to all them counties to get my police reports to turn in. And if somebody doesn't have a driver's license or transportation, like it can feel very daunting, but then they have to, whenever they get around to it, to get an answer back to you on a set aside, right? And I know there's probably some, statutory stuff, but then they just send you a letter that says, need more time. And then, we've had people, it took 10 months to hear back on it. So, to maybe, address some of that stuff in this process part. So not that that's up to us, but like, how do we need to request more information? Or
Yeah, I imagine we just need to get the first, kind of set of looking at, see what we get for timelines first, and that might trigger some additional or inspire some additional requests to make in that regard. So, Mr. Vogel, if you're willing to kind of see if they can provide us a timeline,
Will do.
on that, I think that would be a very, very helpful data for us.
Definitely. And actually, what I'll do just now is send you guys a copy of the request that we placed back in January, just to see if the language is what you're looking for.
I think it would be like, we've talked about having them come in and present to us. I think this would be a great thing for them to come in and talk about, like, what is a time? What do you guys think about that? Like, what is the timeline for set asides? What does that look like for them from the time they get a set aside application? Like, what does that, not the process that they go through, but what does the timeline look like for them? To like get back to organizations and did they talk about that? Like getting to others? I have a vague memory of them talking about like putting in a request to other states and all of that stuff, but it was more around their process and not necessarily around timelines. Do you guys remember?
Ms. Evans, Mr. Chair, I sorry if I'm interrupting anyone, but the department's Katie Ryan did give a really detailed presentation, essentially, about how the process works on their end to the remedies subcommittee, which let's see, I can find somewhere. But I don't think she addressed like specific quantitative information on timelines.
Gina, I remember those discussions though, about, they when something pings at one of their out of state cases, then they're really at the mercy of that state's own timelines. So the timelines that the department has to follow, they can do generally, but when they go to FBI or they go out of state, I thought then it becomes very slow and it's a problem for them. How do they expedite another state's response?
Yeah, we've had lots of folks though that don't have anything out of state, and it still can take a very long time.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that there has been the data has always shown that they don't or are unable to comply with the requirements in statute for responding.
And do we know what the Ms. Basham, do you know off the top of your head
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know where they are. It's in Minnesota Rule 9502.0035 to 9502.0005.
off the top of your head?
I was gonna say, is that off of the top of your head? If I am just so impressed.
Do you wanna, can you email that to Will? That would be great. And then Will, if you could email that link out or email, I was gonna try to write it down, but it was like pie, so.
Will do.
Well, shall we take a look at the data on the screen here for reconsideration requests?
Mhm.
And I think where I'd started is just thinking about reconsideration, not even maybe looking closely at the data here. What do you want to know? And let's see if we have the data to answer that question. And then let's talk about how we might display it. So very high level, what would you want to know about people requesting reconsiderations?
Well, I would for sure want to know gender,
Okay,
the differences in just gender.
okay,
Because I'm
so definitely, so we want requests by gender.
yep, for between men and women who asked for reconsiderations and who didn't.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So we can, why don't we start there? Does that sound good? And we can create some charts here. So so I'm just trying to think of the best way to go ahead and frame that, because we have the gender breakdowns. We have if they requested, if they didn't request. So we could simply, and Will's doing some calculations here. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, let me know if these aren't what we're thinking about, but yeah, okay, that's a major gender discrepancy. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm going to stop thinking aloud.
Okay.
I guess just to explain what I'm doing, I'm just taking the percentages of female versus male for the totals of no reconsideration request and reconsideration requested.
Yeah. So I think rather than displaying both percentage that requested and didn't request, we could just simply frame it as percentage who requested, and we could take a look at male and female and compare the two. Because I think if we add in too many variables there, it gets a little bit more confusing, because simply if we know how many requested, we also know what percentage didn't request, because those should be the opposite of one another, correct?
I was thinking that when I started this, Mr. Chair, but it looks, it doesn't look like that when I do this.
And I feel like when we just do the percentages, it doesn't take into consideration like the amount of people too, right? Because I feel like I feel like there's usually more women to begin with because of the type of fields that there are. And so we have to be careful with that.
Yeah. So let's just start for 2018. Let's take a look at males, for instance, and let's just ask the question in 2018, how many males requested reconsiderations total?
That would be 807.
That's what I'm seeing as well, Will. So males, that's 807 requested out of
a total of 2,879 people who requested reconsideration, and 7,622 total people who did or did not request reconsideration. Sorry, that latter may not be helpful. Let's see here.
So just trying to think, Will, Mr. Vogel, is this a situation where the numbers should add up or not add up? Are we talking people or?
I think the numbers should add up, Mr. Chair. Just a moment. Let me double check that that data set.
I'm pulling out my calculator.
Okay, the specific language is the counts of determinations in Table 1 represent all determinations that were eligible for a reconsideration request. And these determinations are broken out by race, ethnicity, gender, year, and whether reconsideration was requested or where a previous set aside was considered for the disqualified individual. So that's this is a count of determinations, not individuals. I guess in theory, for example, if an individual applied for two jobs in that year, they'd show up twice in this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're not going to add up because like I'm just doing in 2018 the number of requests here. So I'm just trying to think. We want to make sure we're reflecting it accurately as we do tables here or pie charts.
So it's not males, it's male reconsiderations.
Yeah.
So we just may have to make sure we label it properly.
Correct.
So we're not talking about people, we're talking about
The
gender specific reconsiderations.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just reading through, digging in a little bit. And again, if we go to the number of requested, just out of theory, in theory here, so 466 plus 1233 is not going to add up, which we anticipated. So okay, Mr. Vogel, what can you walk us through what you're doing then down there?
Certainly. Sorry if this is distracting. I was just adding up the totals of male determinations versus female determinations for 2018 and 2019. So yeah, Ms. Evans is absolutely correct. We do see a lot more female cases in general in both those years. So that I think is a weakness of doing what I was originally doing, which is doing these percentages, because somewhat unsurprisingly, most non-reconsideration and reconsideration cases were female in this data set for both years.
Got it. So then the 5,027 plus the 2,555 should add up to our grand total though, correct? Because that's total number of, no, it doesn't. That's 7,582.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I feel like what we've discovered is that more women apply overall, and that this piece of data probably isn't super helpful. So we can just move on. Would you guys agree with that conclusion or no?
Say that one more time, Gina.
So I think what we've probably discovered is that more women apply overall. And so is there a way to like decipher anything from this data about reconsiderations? Like, is there a way to do this math that based on the fact that way more women like applied for reconsiderations, like, is there a way to do this math that will discover if there's a higher ratio of women that are reconsidered than men that are reconsidered? Like, is there a way to do the math? Because it's way above my.
I gotta think through it. So, so I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. But yeah, I'm with you. The high level, what we can see is that, of course, there are more females each year requesting reconsiderations than males. That we can say, I think, definitively. What we want to do is go back and look at previous to this, because this would be, do we have more females being disqualified than males? And if not, that's not gonna, there's not gonna be a whole true pattern there. but it might just be a complete kind of separate sort of variable where regardless of how many females are being disqualified, just females in general are making more requests for reconsideration than males, which I think could be kind of interesting to go see if we have that gender data just kind of one step far back, which would be disqualification data, just so we could take a look at that versus this.
So what that data that you just did right there says is that women don't ask for reconsiderations more often than men.
If I'm reading this correctly, Ms. Evans, it looks like the opposite in the case of 2018, at least, that 66% of disqualifications in 2018 were women, but 71% of reconsideration requests were by women.
Okay.
So slightly disproportionate. Although that doesn't hold true for 2019, just eyeballing these numbers. I don't know. I feel like I'm going out on a statistical limb by saying that, though.
Can you just walk us through, Will?
So my reasoning here, which is probably very flawed, is if we take these totals of female and male cases and just adding them up, and again, there's a slight discrepancy here, so I'm using this number. We can see that that about 2/3 in both years, about 2/3 of disqualifications were women and about 1/3 men. And then if we compare that to these statistics about reconsideration requests, we see that a little more than 2/3 of reconsideration requests in 2018 were by women by a couple of percentage points. We don't, however, see that pattern continuing to hold in 2019. And I don't know if that couple of percentage points is actually statistically significant.
Right.
It definitely doesn't look like it's as starkly disproportionate numbers as we see if we look at racial breakdowns.
Yep. And I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I would rather get to racial stuff. Don't you think? How much more time do we have?
Well, it depends is everyone free till 3 today? If so, we've got an hour and 15 minutes. If people don't have till 3, well, we've got till whatever time we got everyone. So
okay.
So okay. Yeah, I'm still trying to. Mr. Vogel, can you bring up the original data spreadsheet just so we can kind of look at the explanation prior to these tables again, just so I can make sure I got my head wrapped around it?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. There's probably a more efficient way for me to do this, but I'm doing it this way.
You go. We're gonna get through it together.
Come on, where are you? There we go. All right, so here's table 1, which is the data that I was just displaying, and here's the explanation of the count in table 1.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just take a look here. So all determinations that were eligible for a reconsideration. Okay, so it is all eligible determinations, or all determinations that were eligible for reconsideration.
Yeah.
So I'm just, if you can go back down to table 1, that I'm just, as if they're all eligible, all the eligible ones. Let's see. Two 974. Yeah. This is what always kind of just messes with my mind a little bit, that when we've got actual requests, it's never nice data that just adds up perfectly. So considerations requests.
Yeah, the part that's hard for me is having all of the data on there. And so it always helps me to like pull it apart. And so from a total of 7,622, like no reconsideration, like it helps me to pull what we're trying to look at out of there, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, out of those 7,600 in 2018, basically what we see is, again, these numbers aren't adding up exactly, because the 4743 plus the 2879, it does add up to the 7622. So so yeah, basically again, you're 37%, 38% requested reconsideration, and well, 60, a little over 60% did not. So I mean, we could start with something that high level.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to I'm wondering if then, the reason, like, say when we add up males and females in the no reconsiderations requested, it comes up to 4722 rather than the 4723. I'm suspecting, Will, and maybe we can go up again, is that I'm wondering if that difference is because we have individuals who may have not identified gender, or that just wasn't available. And I don't know if we had any explanation of that specifically, but that's kind of my working hypothesis.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, Mr. Chair. I don't think we've seen a specific explanation along those lines, though. Just a moment. I'm going to check the other data sets.
Okay. Because if so, we could just, whatever that remaining number is just an unknown, and we could just, have an unknown, but it's very, very minor.
Yep, have a little asterisk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to account for. Because I think when we're just looking at, these are the total eligible, eligible cases for reconsideration, or determinations that were eligible for reconsideration. I don't think it's a matter of the multiple considerations made per person, because we're really just looking at the total number of reconsiderations. And we've got female, we've got male, and I'm going to guess we've just got this small percentage here that we may just not have data in that regard. Or I don't know if DHS has a other category or something like that. But each of the totals, when we add male plus female, come in a little bit less than the actual total for that category. So but let's see here. Let's see what we can do to.
The data DHS gave us doesn't add up. That doesn't add up.
Yeah.
So
I
I
think,
feel like
yeah.
showing the like reconsideration requests, like male versus female, and then we can move on to another one that shows, white people that ask for reconsideration compared to, Black bodies, Native American bodies, like we could just show that, right? Like we did with other stuff, and do the 4 pie charts next to each other. Or do it all in one pie chart, or do it however you think is best with bar charts or whatever. But I think just showing, like, I think it would be good. And we don't have to, I think show the first one showing male and female, and then just total, and then leave that alone. Like, let's pull the gender out of it and then just go to race. Because if we do leave male and female in there and racial disproportionality, it's going to get really messy.
Got it. So I'm just thinking, I think we should start with just a very, very basic 1-2 of like what percentage requested and what percentage did not request reconsideration. Start there, and then do gender, and then do race, and we'll do each of these by year maybe. So Will, I wish we could be sharing both of our screens at the same time, because I'm looking at what you have to populate a slide. So I am just going to go ahead and populate something here quick, and then we'll maybe share my screen, and we're just going to have to do a back and forth. So
sounds good. I could also email you another copy of this spreadsheet, Mr. Chair, so you could just copy and paste over.
That's true. I was going to say, I know I have it too, so maybe I should just look for it. But yeah, if you just wanted to send it to me, that would probably be good. So it's right at the top of my inbox. But I'm going to say, so in 2018, so no reconsideration requested was 4743. And then reconsideration requested
2879.
2879. Thank you. 47.
Well, do you want to send that out to all of us?
Yeah,
or at least to me.
No,
so
you're
it's at the top of my stuff. That would be great.
Definitely. Just a moment. Apologies, I should have just done that from the start. There we go.
So we're going to go counts of disqualifying determination requests. Determinations, I'm sorry. By reconsideration request. And it is not populating here like I want it to, but we're going to go back and go. There we go. And I am just going to add a little bit here, then I'll show it to you for feedback, and then we'll go on to the next one. So I'm going to add some labels. And okay, so Mr. Vogel, I am going to go ahead and share this first one here just to show what I am working up. Get your thoughts. I mean, pretty basic, but this is gonna make the text white. So basically in 2018, just at the very highest level, we're saying count of disqualifying determinations by reconsideration request. And maybe I want to put total
7,622.
something like that. So I think we can just easily see how many people did not make a request and how many people did make a request. Does that make sense?
Yep. I think, yep. That's good.
And then I think, what I want to do, I think for the next slide, this is all broken down to male, female, how many didn't request and how many did request. I think we just choose one direction. And I think we choose in terms of those who requested reconsideration, look at that male and female, if that makes any sense. I think that would be the next sort of logical step. So maybe what I'll do is insert. I'm just going to duplicate this slide. And I think what we'll do here, reconsideration requests by gender. And what was the total number of people who requested reconsiderations in 2018? So this is in the reconsideration requested.
2,879.
2,879. So that's our total. Yep. And then what we could do down here is we can go through and we can edit some data here, and we can just go female.
That would be 2053.
2053.
Yep.
And
807.
807. Whoops, going to edit data here. There we go. Give me your thought. Do we want to keep using blue and orange, or do we want to change the color so we know we're looking at different variables here? And my hesitation here is we use different colors. I don't want to use societally defined gender colors, if that makes any sense. I want to stay away from pink and blue and such like that, but I'd probably want to go to different colors. Or does that not make a difference?
It doesn't matter. Pink,
yeah,
blue and orange is fine.
Okay,
I agree.
Okay, so we'll just stick with blue and orange here, because I think what we can see is of those who made reconsideration requests, what we can see is a lot more females requested than males requested. Does that make sense? Is that clear enough? Is that? Do you think a common person reading this is going to be able to go, oh, yep, that makes sense more? Or do we want to add
I would add a text box.
That's just where I was going, Gina. So let's insert text box.
Yep, and you could even put in there like what are the total numbers of males that or females that applied compared to males that applied, to just show that causation, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the exact language there again, Will. It's like these are disqualifications that were eligible for reconsideration, right?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chair. Also, I don't know if you can see, but Ms. Basham's hand is up.
Oh, I cannot. So Ms. Basham, what do you got?
Hold on. Okay, couldn't unmute myself, which some people would say is a good thing. When you want, I was looking at the statutes to refresh my memory. And so whenever you want, I could give a brief update on the timeline.
Cool, cool. Let's knock out this slide here, and then let's get that update. That would be perfect. So disqualified that we're
Will you send me the DHS document as well?
Which document, Ms. Evans?
The one that you had, that you keep flashing up, not just the Excel spreadsheet that you
Oh,
put together. the
definitely.
DHS document as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I'll send that to everyone.
I feel like that's confusing.
Mr. Chair, to make a suggestion.
Yeah, I would love one.
If we're interested in essentially showing the context of there being a larger statistical universe of female disqualifications in general, maybe two pie charts side by side, one with female versus male DQs, and then one with reconsideration requests. Visually, then the reader could see that there's more females than males in both cases, but more females than males in the case of reconsideration requests, if that makes sense.
Got it. So here we'd also want to have just a table of total number of females who have been disqualified in 2018. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, at least that's what I'm thinking. I don't know what the members think about that.
I actually like that. I think that's kind of what we were hoping. Let's do something like this. So we would just want disqualifications by gender.
Yeah. And this is unfortunately where we'd show the numbers not quite adding up, but that's good to acknowledge anyway, I suppose.
Yeah. So can you give me those?
Oh yeah, definitely. And Ms. Basham's hand is still up, although I don't know if, yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot. There we go. Okay. So a total of 7,582 for 2018. Total female 50. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay.
5,027. And then total male 2,555.
2555.
Yep. Huh. That must not be updating. Because that should be 66 and 34%.
No, I'm going to go back in. There we go.
Okay.
There we go. It takes a moment. So, okay. And then we have this. Does this give a so I think what we want to say then is insert. I'm going to go back and insert a text box. In 2018, there were a larger number of females that were disqualified than males. Additionally, of those that were disqualified, a greater percentage of females requested reconsideration than males. How does that sound? Or maybe we want to have a note. I take that I want to do this differently. Sorry. I invoke it's a working meeting clause. So in 2018, there were a larger number of females than that were disqualified than males. That is true, correct? So we've got 5,027 females that were disqualified and 2,555 males that were disqualified, correct?
Yeah, I feel like you should swap those.
Because people will see blue and think male?
No. So the reconsideration. Oh no, the disqualification comes first. Forget it.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Oh, I think you're saying swap the colors. So
Nope. I was just thinking about yeah, forget I said anything.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And then I think
The other note should go underneath the other pie chart.
I agree.
Yep.
Do we want to think about, so I'm going to make a comment here based on memory, but not based on current knowledge, although I suspect it hasn't changed significantly. A lot of licenses are held, particularly childcare, are held by individuals who identify as female. So while I think these are useful pie charts, not to be too lawyerly, and we tend to want to add a lot of language and qualifiers, but I just wouldn't want people to look at it and think more women appeal, as opposed to more women appealing could perhaps be a byproduct of, in general, more licenses are held by women.
Yes. So maybe we do need to go back. I agree, Ms. Basham. I wonder if we need to go back and maybe there'd be some merit in actually having 3 pie charts, and maybe we even start at the very high level of looking at, of background studies that are done. If you look at the very high level, more females are having studies done than males, because there's more females in these positions than males. So it'd be helpful to add a whole nother kind of high level chart.
I think so. I would think so. And also because even if, stop me at any point if you're like, okay, this is way too much like legal appeals minutia, but if it is a contested consolidated appeal, and that means there is both a licensing action and a disqualification in dispute, and often there would be a contested consolidate, a licensing action was as a result of a disqualified individual. So what I mean by that is for hypothetical sake, pretend that I am a childcare license holder. My boyfriend moves in. This is what we often saw. My boyfriend moves in, and then you have to have a background check study done according to licensing regulations of anyone who is a household member who is aged 16 or older. So it could be a couple of different things. It could be my boyfriend, my girlfriend, or my child hits the age where a background study then has to be done on them, and that household member, not necessarily me, is disqualified, but because I have a disqualified person living in my household, they then revoke my license. And so then it becomes what's called a contested consolidated case appeal. And I might be the person holding the license and therefore initiating the appeal, which would be my right to do. I'm not necessarily the person who's disqualified. Am I making that way more?
You are, but I'm just wondering how that's reflected in the data we got. Like if a person's disqualified by association, for lack of better words, I assume that's still showing up as a disqualification?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but probably on the male that was disqualified, not on the female whose license is
okay.
So I think
unless it's the person who's disqualified, then it would show up as both for the license holder. And as a matter of right, again, using just the example for argument's sake, if I hold a child care license, I can appeal the license. I can initiate what's called the contested consolidated case appeal. I cannot appeal the other person's disqualification, which is one of the other challenges that arises, which is, let's say that I'm just, for argument's sake, going to say boyfriend hypothetically, and I don't have a boyfriend because I am married. But for argument's sake, let's say that my boyfriend has something on his record which was a disqualifying, a permanent bar, like first-degree aggravated assault, murder, homicide, any of those types of things under 245C. And let's say that happened 15 years ago, but it's a permanent bar. He never appealed it, because why would he, if he's not in a profession that requires him to be able to work in a licensed facility? And so now he can't appeal that, I can't appeal that, or even if he could still appeal, he has to appeal the disqualification. What I can ask for, though, in my contested consolidated appeal is a variance to his disqualification. And I think we've talked about that, but only a little. And a variance is specific to the license. So if my boyfriend then decides, gosh, I really like being around kids, now I want to go work at a school, even if he got a variance in my childcare center, that doesn't mean anytime he goes, and I think we did talk about this once, because I feel like I remember Gina saying everywhere he goes, he's going to then have to apply for a variance again. I don't know if this is helpful, or if I've just gone off into a legal.
Whether helpful and no, fascinating, absolutely. I'm just it just is, all the nuances, all the complexities just continue to astound me. So yeah, so my mind always starts going to how can we display that? And with all of those complexities, my mind's like, I don't know.
That I can't help you with.
Yeah, it's very interesting though.
And Mr. Chair, this doesn't quite have to do with Ms. Basham's point, but I guess to give some higher level context, we have data from the first data set revised with gender. Table 1 gives us distinct counter determinations by race, ethnicity, gender, and year. And Table 2 gives us distinct count of persons with at least one determination by race, ethnicity, and year. And in both cases, I was just doing the math behind the scenes. It looks like for 2018 and 2019, pretty much for both those tables, It's 75-25 female versus male, which is to say 3/4 of both determinations and distinct individuals were identified as female to begin with.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to think if it would be more beneficial to do a pie chart by individual or by number of unique determination, if that makes, or by determination or by.
Well,
individual.
Mr. Chair, I guess my thinking would be that determination might be better just for consistency, because determinations are what we have sort of further down the pipeline, as it were.
Correct. That makes sense. Thank you. So let's go. I don't want to make these too small. But maybe we can make them a little bit smaller and find room for. One more we can play around with sizing later. But I'm doing it right now. So, okay, so let's. Go. So, Mr. Vogel, can you give me the language then? That would be determinations.
Yeah, so if table 1 would be distinct counted determinations, in this case, I just give you by gender.
And how many total determinations were made?
In 2018, 184,700.
184,700.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm just gonna use the same language. You said distinct
Distinct counted determinations. Yep.
by gender. Okay. And
actually, I'll send out a copy of this as well. Just a moment.
I just do it there to keep this all the same size. So then, Mr. Vogel.
138,531 female for 2018.
And how many males?
45,925.
45,925?
45,925. Yep. Apologies, I was multitasking there.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Thank you.
Yep.
So I think this gives a nice breakdown that when we take a look at the total number of determinations by gender, we know right off, this is what Ms. Basham was indicating, I think earlier, is like more females in general are having, determinations made because there may be more females in these positions. And then we take that a step further and we take a look at, disqualifications though. If everything held true, we'd expect to see that same 75-25, if that makes any sense. Where if it was proportionate all the way through, we'd see 75% of the disqualifications were female and 25% were male, but we don't see that. We see a bit more of the disqualifications being for males than for females. And then finally, when we look at those people who have been disqualified, who are eligible for a reconsideration, we do see that more females are making requests than males are. Thoughts, comments? Is this helpful? Do you think we need the notes below or not? We do need the notes below. Okay. So let's start with just some small notes for each of these then. And I am just going to drag these here. We'll organize them a bit better later on. in 2018, there were more distinct determinations made for females than males. Does that give us anything that's not there, or do we want to frame this differently? I don't want to put my assumptions in, but I mean, I think I think the takeaway here is that we have more females applying for jobs that require determinations to be made than males. That's just the takeaway. So that can be our statement there in 2018. So I don't know, I want to focus on the fact that there is a greater number of females than males, because I think the big takeaway here is that it's not proportionate to the number of determinations made, if that makes any sense. I think that's our takeaway. Or maybe we say something to the effect of, while 75% of determinations were females, only 65% of disqualifications were for females. Does that help to draw out that point more or not? Thoughts, feedback? Have I just gotten way too?
It's making sense to me so far, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Sounds good.
Same, Jolene, you're doing great.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then let's just go to this third one here. And then I think what we want to say is, so then when we look at disqualifications, while 65% of disqualifications were
66.
Thank you, and I need to change that before. 6% of disqualifications were for females. 72% of requests for reconsiderations came from females. And maybe that's not that, I mean, it's not a big difference, but it's a difference. And to what degree do we want to call that out?
Yeah, I think just showing it is good. Like we showed that, I mean, that's what we found. And people can kind of come to their own conclusions about it. But I think, you know, even when you're presenting it to even talk about the fact that many of these, I would even go that far to say many of these license holding areas that we're talking about are fairly female dominated.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know, that's what kind of accounts for this 75-25. And
Yeah.
and that you would think that would carry through, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, what I'm glad to see is it's not like dramatically different. You know what I'm saying? It's different for sure, but you know, we'd hope to see that because more females are in these positions, there's more determinations being made. So there's more, you know, granted, that's why we see more females being disqualified than males. It's closely proportionate, but not exactly proportionate to the number of determinations being made. And then, you know, for the requests, you know, so
Chair Jolene has her hand up.
yeah, it was just actually noticed that. So thank you. Ms. Robertus, what do you got?
This is super quick and take it for what it's worth, because I don't disagree with everything like we're discussing in this small group that, you know, with women in these positions. I suspect that the last time we made some inferences on the data, that's when DHS kind of got squirrely and said, you know, and so my suggestion would be we make sure we are careful with how we speak to this in the larger group.
Yeah.
And say this, we believe this could mean this, right? But we don't actually know, right? To you know, we don't have those data sets specifically. And I think that was the crux of the DHS complaint. So
Yeah.
I think we can infer some things, but we have to make sure to note that we believe this is connected. I'm not sure that we have the evidence for cause and effect here. So that's just my 2 cents, that I think that that's where some of that happened last time. But
Yep,
I totally agree.
I totally agree too. I agree. We want to be very careful and just, you know, frame things as factually as we can, so that, you know, we're just displaying the data in a meaningful and accurate way. Is there anything here that would seem like we're making an inference, anything that we would not be comfortable with? Because I feel like this. Oh, go ahead.
I think the slides display it. I think the slides speak for themselves. And so there's almost this, do we have to even add that? You know what I mean? So it doesn't raise then that what declaration that DHS had to make. So that's more what I'm getting at. Like, do these slides speak for themselves, where maybe we can tame down our inferences, that so DHS doesn't write one of those, what did they call it? Well, I can't remember.
Sorry, I can't remember precisely, but that supplemental language they requested.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can we avoid that altogether by letting the data speak for itself? And I think by adding those notes, it sort of does that a little bit. So I really like the notes, is my point.
Okay, cool. Okay, so anything anyone would change about these slides? Jill, can I ask you, what are your thoughts? Liking?
Yeah, so I was just kind of waiting to chime in.
Oh, good.
I like all of this. I just can't remember if we had done something like this previously, showing the number of disqualifications, that percentage of then people that actually do reconsider. Because if you look at this, 63% of people that are disqualified don't even request reconsideration. That's a lot. So I don't know if we've shown those numbers like that elsewhere. If we need to, it's just something that's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, so this would be there where we've got that for 2018, only 38% are requesting reconsideration, basically 62% are not. So I think we've got that story there, and then we kind of go down to this a little bit more nuanced sort of thing where really what we're getting at is reconsideration requests, you know, of those who are requesting reconsideration by gender, you know, 72% are female, 28% are male. But to look at that first, we have to look at the big picture here. We got to take a few steps back and just remind ourselves that of all the determinations that are made, about 75% are for females and 25% are for males. And then we got to take that, one step further and go, of the disqualifications, about 2/3 are female and a third are male. And then that we whittle our way down and just talk about those who actually request reconsideration for those disqualifications. So, Mr. Vogel, it looks like you're thinking very hard. Were you?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. I was just looking over work that the group's done previously,
Okay.
breaking down these data by race. And I was trying to make sure it was the same data set.
Okay.
Yeah, so then that's just kind of the next thing that I think Gina had mentioned too, that we move on to those categories of race and see how they compare.
Can I propose before we do that to quickly do a 2019 slide to duplicate these for 2019? Is that okay?
It's a good idea.
So do we want to look at all of 28 together? Oh, no, good question. Like maybe we want to go on to race for 2018 and get that done and then go back and do all of them for 2019.
I think that would be good, especially
Yeah,
when we
I
have
think
30
you're right.
minutes left. And
I mean, looking at the data for 2019, numbers increased everywhere, but kind of looking at it, just generally my eyes looking at it, percentages of things stayed close.
Cool.
So
let's go ahead and let's get a new slide in here for 2019 or 2018 still. And what do we?
So, Mr. Chair, I just forwarded to the whole group your email with the breakdown that you did a couple of meetings ago. It's based on eligibility to work versus ineligibility to work. So I think that might be based on the second DHS supplement to the fourth data set, but it should essentially be the same statistical universe.
Okay, I am closing, and you said that's the most recent thing you sent, Mr. Vogel?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'm seeing maybe my email's not quite up to date yet. I'm sorry.
And it might also be weird on your end, Mr. Chair, because I'm forwarding an email from you back to you.
Got it. Yep. The last email I got from you was at 2:16 p.m.
Yeah, this would be a 229 email, Mr. Chair.
yep.
Okay.
And I just got it. So you should get it in a second.
Okay. Going through the server. I'm hoping.
So this was eligible to work versus ineligible to work. And so what we're doing now is reconsideration requested versus not requested. So I think it's different, Will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do a simple one here of just, who's requesting and who's not requesting by race. Does that sound?
Yeah, I think what Will's saying though is you could use this as a framework for it and just switch out the information. Is that what you're saying, Will?
Yes, Ms. Evans, and I was trying to double check myself to see if we had already done this work, which you're right, we
Okay.
hadn't.
Yeah, no, this is different, but you could use this slide and just change because it's all laid
I
out
see what you're
already.
saying. Yeah, because we got it by race.
Yep, and then we could just switch out the information to
To be request and didn't request.
Yep.
I like it. That is smart thinking there. Thank you.
Time saver. We don't no reason to recreate the wheel, huh?
You got it. So, oops, I apparently did not grab the slide as I thought I had. Once I get it grabbed here. Oh, I needed to enable editing. Here we go. I'm going to copy the slide. I'm going to put it in and then I'll share my screen again so we're all looking at the same page. Okay, I'm going to reshare. Okay, so we're just calling these 2018. Well, maybe we want to retitle it different. Is that accurate there? This is what we're getting at. So let's go to individuals who identify as African American. Let's do this and let's go. Oh, I need to go back and see what we've done here. So let's see. Reconsideration requested is
The top variable, I believe, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Actually, no, sorry, vice versa. The bottom variable.
Okay. Yep, so no reconsideration is the top. And okay. No reconsideration requested. And that would be how many individuals?
1,839 African American individuals in 2018. Well, African American determinations in 2018. Versus 836.
And what was that number again? 836?
Correct.
Okay, how does that look? No reconsideration requested. Reconsideration requested. And then let's go Asian Pacific Islander. That's
That. Oh.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back here and do a quick.
Makes sense.
Oh, that did not work like I wanted it to. That did not. Oh, we've done percentages here before, but we'll have to fix that. So give me a number.
Arrow back, arrow back.
Right.
105 and 48. And it looks like there's a problem with reconsideration, but that would be 48, Mr. Chair.
There we go. And that look correct?
Mhm.
Okay, and let's go on to the next one. Okay, and the Native American. So let me do the same thing right here. And how about how many were no reconsideration?
325 and 94.
Okay. And I'll close out of this. And I'm going to, undo.
You're doing great, Roy.
Thanks. Okay, and let me just go in and let's get the correct numbers here. So for
2058.
2058. There we go.
and 1,701.
Look at that.
Huh.
Yep, that was my
Okay then.
Interesting.
Not surprising though.
No, yeah. And part of that, this is where we don't want to give our inferences, but I go, is it that white individuals have more resources available them to make the reconsiderations? Is it that they have more confidence or believe that theirs will be accepted? Like, what is it? There's probably a whole lot of factors there, but
Yep, could be education, could be resources, could be like, we don't know.
yeah, we don't know.
Just show the data.
Right. They go, why is this one? Maybe that's their narrative. Just go,
And
why?
even more striking is, why are all Native American numbers lower or higher, depending on what we're talking about? Like, that always makes me sad, because they represent so little of our population, but they always have whatever is terrible is the numbers,
Absolutely. Well, how's everyone feeling about this table? Is it reflecting what we want it to reflect? It got a response, so I feel like it's it means we're able to see the data in a way that shows us something. I'll pause for a moment and just ask for your thoughts. Okay, we got 29 minutes left.
Should we just stay on this one and switch it out for the 2019 numbers?
Let's do it. I was just going to see if I could just copy all three of these slides at the same time. And I can, and I'm going to go down to 2019, 2019, and 2019. Okay, here we go. Let's look at 2019, and I'm going to do this. So do we have someone ready with data, African American individuals for 2019?
I do, Mr. Chair. 3,631 and 1,257.
Okay.
All right. And if anyone catches me reciting the wrong things, please let me know. There's a lot
That's
of
the great
numbers
thing about
in front of
having
me.
multiple eyes on this, multiple
Yep.
reviewing. Okay.
For Asian or Pacific Islander, 202 and 79.
There we go.
$463 and 155.
Okay.
3527
3527
and 2312.
Awesome. There we go. Yep, pattern holds true in 2019.
Have we talked about why there's more to be, like, more as a whole? Like, the grand total is 7622 in 2018, and the grand total in 2019 is 13,000.
I think that's just the nature of we had that increase in the number of determinations being made overall from 2018 to 2019. So everything, all the numbers are going to be higher in 2019 than 2018. I think there's just a bigger N to start with because of those statutory changes, rule changes. Correct. I think that's kind of at least my understanding. Others?
Yeah, didn't DHS talk about that with that one grant or whatever, the statute changing, it increased the amount of background studies that had to be done.
Yeah. So I think, more studies being done, so more determinations being made. So if you get more determinations, we'll have more disqualifications. And if there's more disqualifications, there's more people who would be eligible to request a reconsideration. So,
because that math right there from 1 year to the next is double.
let's do this. Should we do this one?
Yep. So the total there, Mr. Chair, as Ms. Evans is saying, is 12,928.
Okay.
No reconsideration request, 8708. Reconsideration requested 4220. Correct. And it looks like it didn't update, Mr. Chair.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And should we do this? Oops. Here we go.
Just a moment. Okay, distinct determinations by gender. Yeah, I have the correct thing up. So 2019 will be a total of 210625.
Okay.
Total female 157718. Correct. Total male 52070.
Okay. Oh, it did update, didn't it? Okay.
Yeah, looks like it. And then
That's interesting. It's exactly 75-25.
yep, it is across the board, but between both years and between determinations and distinct count of individuals.
Okay, so 2019, there we go. And then let's do the disqualifications by gender. What's our number we're looking at here?
So that's that calculated number, which is a slight disparity. That's 12632.
Okay.
Let me know when you're okay.
There we go.
Total female 8419. Total male 4213. And then, yeah. Okay, and then
What's our total up top?
total up top 12928. Oh wait, no, sorry. I
was gonna say that seemed big.
yeah, no, I was reading the wrong thing. See, 4220. I knew I'd mess this up at some point.
You're good. You're good. Okay, and then let's edit here.
Yep.
For female.
2830.
Okay.
And male 1278. So I guess just to editorialize, as we can see in 2019, that pattern from 2018 of a higher portion of females requesting reconsideration doesn't really hold. At least if I'm reading that right.
Yeah, basically, because what we're saying is of the disqualifications made, 67% were female and 33% were male. And then when we take a look at from that, you know, if things held proportionate, you'd see 33 and 67 on the next pie chart. And that's not a significant difference there. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Sorry, Ms. Evans appeared in the waiting room, and oh, there she is.
Got it. Okay. How do we feel with this?
Looks great.
Yay, we accomplished something. It's good. I tell you what, maybe what I could do is we could send this out to the group and have everyone take a look at it and just kind of ponder it. If you have a friend or a boyfriend or this was back to you, Ms. Basham earlier. No, if you have anyone you'd want to share it and just go, does this make sense? You know, and then we
Yep, I think get it to Lucas too, so that they can look at it over in remedies.
got it.
Will do.
Okay. Well,
And ask her if it's helpful, and if there's something else that as they're getting into process would be also helpful.
Will do.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for, you know, sticking with us today. I mean, this is again the nature of the work group. I know it doesn't always move fast. It's somewhat tedious, but honestly, having you all here and giving feedback and double checking numbers is super helpful. I know when I'm displaying data, I'm always worried I'm going to throw a wrong number there. So having multiple people looking at it together is reassuring. So thank you. But just to reiterate, we will send this out. Please take a look at it. Let us know if you have any feedback. We'll get it to the other subcommittee as well to see if it's helpful, if there's anything we could adjust or narrate differently, and we'll go from there. My hope for our next meeting is that we will have the newly requested data from DHS, and if not the most recently requested data, that we'll have one of the other prior requests. So we'll have more data to look through and do a little analysis and go from there. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
So I just want to let you guys know, like, I just did a DHS background study. It took 2 months. I just got it back today. And so I will be doing my own reconsideration. So I'll have some personal data to share.
Thank you, Jill. Unfortunately, but you'll have that for the reconsideration. I wish it were not needing to reconsider, but that'll be helpful to hear your story and the timelines and such. So thank you for being willing to share that.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd just like to remind you also, this is publicly recorded and available. So just don't share anything you don't want the public to know. But thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good reminder. Okay, any other comments, questions, thoughts before we adjourn?
Thanks, everybody.
Do you want me to
I gotta
quick review of timelines?
Oh, that's right. Ms. Basham, you were going to give us that. Oh, thank you. What are you willing to still do that in the time we have left, or am I putting other
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
If folks want that. I'm going to share. Oh, I can't share my screen. So I'm going to just talk from my notes, and then I can send this to Will as a follow-up, but I just want to give a little context first.
Yeah.
Couple of lawyerly disclaimers. We do this a lot. One is my work was specifically with the contested consolidated case appeals. So that means there is both a licensing action and a disqualification. So the timelines I'm about to to talk with you about are with regard to contested consolidated cases, not disqualifications alone. So a negative licensing action, which could be a violation of a licensing action and or disqualification, has to be submitted within 15 calendar days, sorry. And then a reconsideration must be submitted to the county within 20 calendar days of the notice. If the licensor is going to seek an immediate suspension of the license, then DHS has 5 working days to request a hearing. And the hearing has to occur within 30 days, and the decision has to be issued within 10 working days. Regular hearings, meaning it's not an immediate license revocation, have 15 working days to schedule a hearing and 90 calendar days to issue a decision. Did that just hopefully, did that sort of make sense?
It did. I was going to say now for the pop quiz. So,
Oh no.
That's a lot of timelines. So, thank you. Good. Would you? Are you willing to go through? I mean, I was following, but I just think actually we have it recorded. I can watch it again and see.
Okay.
It takes me a time or two just for it to kind of all
Sink in.
in.
That's okay. We can also put this on the agenda in the future. Let me know if you wanted. You don't have to let me know now, but let me know before it's on the agenda, and I could prepare a little bit more if we wanted to walk through this.
I was going to say, if Chair Geffen is open, would it be? I'm wondering if it'd be helpful not only for this committee but for other committees or the task force, just to kind of think through timeline. So, Mr. Vogel, maybe you can help me to remember when we have our next chairs meeting, we can discuss where the best place for that would be, because I'm interested, but I imagine there's others who would be interested as well, if you're willing to have a little bit bigger audience. So
just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very helpful. I just sincerely appreciate your working knowledge, having done work in this area. It's just it's something I don't have, so I just sincerely appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments today?
So I was just going to say, from that information, if I was like calculating things correctly, that process could take like 5 months. Am I adding that correctly? Just shy of 5 months? If all the time was taken? You're muted.
I'd say more like 3 or 4, Jill. However, the other thing I didn't go into, and this is if I wasn't like looking at this during a meeting and going back, so sorry, I was distracted. I was trying to get some quick answers, but there's also in some cases the ability to keep your license while the licensing action is pending.
Okay.
It's not an immediate revocation, not to make it even more confusing. Not that that makes it better, but it's not in every case where a person's license would immediately be revoked.
Okay, that helps.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for a productive meeting. Any objections to adjourning?
Nope.
Well, we will adjourn at 2:58 p.m. I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you. Thank you for all of your help and your input. I really appreciate it. Have a good day.